Hey there folks, today I'd like to take a casual peek into the Super Imaginative Chogokin, or S.I.C, Kamen Rider Another Agito action figure set from Bandai. Now, Another Agito is part of a 2-pack of volume number 20 in the S.I.C line, which contained both Another Agito as well as Agito himself in his burning form and shining form. This set was first available in 2003 and originally sold for about 4,500 yen. I got this set in 2013 when I purchased it from Mandarake, which is a Japanese secondhand pop culture web store, and I only paid 3,000 yen for this set. Now, this video will just focus on Another Agito himself, which is on the left here. And a separate video will be dedicated to Agito in his burning and shining form. Taking a look at Another Agito in the packaging here, and yes, if you're not familiar with the show Kamen Rider Agito, his name is Another Agito because he basically is another one. And he appeared later in the show, I could say the last 10 or so episodes. And you can see the figure here. He looks very much like a Showa period Kamen Rider, which is pretty cool. And also you can see he's a little bit different than how he was represented in the show. And that's because this is the Super Imaginative Chogokin, which takes a very stylized look into the popular tokusatsu characters. And you could tell that it is Another Agito, but of course it's a very different take on him. And you can see also next to the figure are the mufflers that he wears on the show, which is pretty cool. And behind the figure are some extra accessory parts. Here we have the back of the packaging showcasing both figures, or I should say both 2.5 figures really. At the top we have a picture of both Agito in his burning form and Another Agito here. And here we showcase closer up photos of Agito, or Another Agito I should say. And also up here as well, and then you have Agito in both his burning and shining form down there. And a lot of the print on this packaging is in Japanese. Unfortunately, I don't know what that says on there, but you can see it here and here as well, next to the photos over there. And you got more print in Japanese here, as well as over here. And at the bottom of the box, you have a nice picture of both Another Agito as well as Agito himself. Now we'll be right back and have the contents for Another Agito out of the packaging. Okay, we have Another Agito here out of the packaging, and this figure is actually pretty decent. It's a lot better than what I had previously read. It had mentioned that the newer version of Another Agito, I believe it's in volume 63, was much better than this version here. But this version of Another Agito from volume 20 is actually pretty decent. And there are some aspects of this figure that I like better than the newer version. And we'll go into that in a little bit. But if you're not familiar with Another Agito, he is one of the 4 main writers on the show, Masked Rider Agito. And it's kind of hard to explain, but his name is Another Agito. And it seems a pretty odd name for a Kamen Rider. But as I mentioned, it's kind of hard to explain because a lot of the show of Agito is surrounded in mystery. And a lot of stuff is revealed over the course of the series. And Another Agito doesn't show up until past halfway through. And I believe he doesn't show up until around episode 36 or so. So it's almost 3/4 of the way in the show. But Another Agito is essentially another Agito. He is a different form of Agito. Not really form, but a different character. And Agito himself is just different. And it's really kind of complicated to explain. You really have to just watch the show. But Another Agito is a variation, I guess you could say, of Agito, about a totally different persona. It's just a different version of Agito as a concept. Now, taking a look at Another Agito here, one thing about S.I.C. Is the stylization of the characters it produces, or figures that it produces. And I have to say that this particular figure here actually is a close representation of what's shown on the show. So there is stuff that's a little bit different, stylized, but not too much. There is differences in the head, the belt, and one of the forearms. But essentially, it's a close representation of Another Agito as depicted on the show. And it's actually pretty decent. Now, there are pieces, alternative pieces, you can outfit Another Agito with to make him even more different than what was shown on Agito. And we'll get into those in a little bit. We're just going to go ahead and take a look at the figure as it's outfitted right now. Pretty close representation of Another Agito in the show. Now, starting off with the head sculpt here, you can see it's actually pretty decent. It looks fairly close to the character on the show. It is slightly different, especially the helmet, if you can call it a helmet, design on here. And it's actually pretty cool. And it's very bug-like in design. Which is pretty close to what Another Agito is represented on the show. I believe he's a nod toward the earlier Showa era Kamen Riders, because Agito, the show, was the second Heisei Kamen Rider show to be released. And there are different riders on the show, and I guess Another Agito represents a nod toward the earlier era of Kamen Rider, where they were very bug-like. And actually, but he is a little bit different than the earlier Showa era Kamen Riders in that he actually physically transforms. This is not a suit of armor that he's wearing. This is actually a physical transformation of Another Agito from his human form. Which is pretty cool. And another writer on that show is in similar design, where he's is a physical transformation as opposed to a person in a suit. And taking a look again at the head sculpt, is very bug-like. You can see all the sections here of what I guess you can call carapace on the armor. It's very nice. It's got a nice green paint to it with I guess not a glitter type pattern to it. Nah, not really. But it still looks very nice, almost metallic like in sheen on there. And also you have the eyes here that are very bug-like. And it's got nice compound eyes, very, very cool. And then you have here the antenna or horns that are fairly common on Kamen Riders on the series. And this one is fairly close to Agito's design, but a little bit different because he is Another Agito. He's not Agito himself. But you could see the three-prong design on each side. That's fairly representative of Agito on the show. And it's painted in a nice gold color, not too vibrant, but not too dull. Very cool. And of course, you could see here the face mask or the mouth armor on the show. He has this plate that sits in front of his mouth, and when he goes into his powered up mode, that actually shifts up to reveal some bared teeth, skull-like teeth. But as you can see here, he's wearing the face plate, I guess you can call it, or mouth plate on there, and it's pretty decent. And it looks like it's in two sections here, one in gold and in silver on the bottom end, and this jaw can actually move to reveal more of that metallic face plate there in silver. Now that's a bit of a stylization on the show. It's just one solid golden piece that sits in front of his mouth on there. But this one is in two colors here, gold and silver, so that's pretty decent. Looking at the torso area here, it's very nice, very bug-like in design, especially on the pads here. Not really pads because it's not a suit, it's actual shell, I guess you could say, for Another Agito, which is very nice. You can see all the sculpting designs and the stress lines on here. It's actually very, very cool. And then here in the center you have this nice translucent piece here, which I think was red on the show, I'm not sure, but this one here is in yellow. Very cool. And then you have the shoulder armor here on there, and this one's just a rather smooth over, but the one here has the Agito symbol, and you could see right there, which is really cool, and that was on the show as well, but very nice on there. And looking over here in the back, you can see some wing-like, bug-like wing pattern here, and then you have the muffler that is produced from underneath the wings instead of around the neck on there, which is I guess close to what was shown on the show. And it's a nice flowing muffler there in orange, and you can see the sculpting design on here and some paint design. There's some here in sections that are in slight gold color. Kind of hard to see on the video screen with the lamps shining on it, but there is some streaks here of gold on the muffler, and nicely sculpted, individually sculpted there. They're not a matching mirror left-right set. They're actually unique on each end there. Very cool. And here going down the arms, you got these I guess spikes, a very bug-like or grasshopper type spikes, both on the arms and on the legs there. So it's very, very cool. And this one, what's really cool about this particular version of Another Agito compared to the newer version of Agito is this particular spike here. This one here is actually metallic, while I think the one in volume 63 is just a pair of organic type spikes. But you have this very metallic-like spike as opposed to this one here. And this I really do like, is because this is a nod to the show. And I'm going to spoil it a little bit, but the character Kino, who is Another Agito, is a doctor on the show. And in the past, him and his brother were in a sort of a mountainous area, snowy mountainous area, and they were in trouble. And his brother did not survive, but Kino did, and as a result, though, he had lost his arm, and in the process, he was able to, I guess, or the doctors were able to transplant his younger brother's arm onto himself and graft the arm onto Kino. And this here is a really cool nod to the transplanted arm of Kino on the show, which is very, very cool. I really dig that. Moving down here, we have the belt and the eye-like, I guess, driver, you could say, which is pretty cool. It's in translucent plastic there. Very, very nice. And these sections of the belt, there's 3 separate sections here, are in die-cast metal, where the Chogokin comes into play from the set. And there's 3 separate metallic pieces there. Very cool. Usually these 2 here are the activation buttons when they do their henshins. into like their forms, which is pretty cool on there. And on the back here, you can see the belt. It's kind of hard to see. I'm going to move these out of the way. You can see there, this is plastic there, but it's painted silver on there. It's a very nice sculpt and paint there. And moving down here to the legs, you can see how organic the legs are. Very, very nice, which is very cool. And you got some nice paint detail there in black and orange. Very, very cool. Now, a lot of the S.I.C figures from the second generation have padded armor that you can fit on the figure's legs or arms. And it looks like it's the same way here, but they are non-removable. It looks like they were glued on, so you can't remove the padding on the legs here. You can see the sculpt where the padding fit over the leg. But it's non-removable. I've tried picking at it a little bit, and it looks like they're glued down, so you cannot remove those. And there you can see more sculpting design on the back of the leg there. Very, very cool. And moving down here, you got the lower leg, more of that bug-like sculpture to it, and then you got the spike here protruding off of the heel, back of the heel on there, and around the ankles you can see like a anklet there with nice sculpting detail. I forgot to mention the one on the wrist there. It's got a nice design as well, which is very, very cool on there. And you also have the feet of the figure here. Nice simple design, but you can see the intricacies in the sculpting right here, the layered effect on the sculpt, which is very cool. And you got some design on the soles of the feet there. So really decent figure for an earlier generation figure or set on there, and it's just pretty decent. Now, before we get into the other accessories, I do want to go over the articulation of this figure first. Starting with the head is on a ball joint on the neck and can go all the way around, as well as up and down, side to side, so a nice movement there. And there is a ball joint at the base of the neck, so you can get added articulation of the head, which is very, very cool. As I showed earlier, the jaw is articulated. You can actually move the jaw up and down, which is very nice on there. The arms at the shoulder are ball socket joints, so you can move the arms all the way around, as well as out and in. And because they're ball socketed joints, you can also move it up and down a little bit on the shoulder, as well as around, forward and back. There is no bicep articulation. There are double joints at the elbows. They're both ball socketed joints connected to the bicep and the forearm. And this allows a nice range of movement. You can bend the arm about that much inwards and this far straight. And because they're ball socketed joints, you can also rotate the forearm around, or I guess the arm a little bit, but in relation to the forearm. So that's kind of nice. The hands at the wrists have ball socket joints as well, so you can move the hand all the way around. This one's a little bit tight, but still pretty decent to move. And you can also move it in and out, as well as side to side, or just around a circular movement on there. So that's pretty decent. And there is a hinge joint at the torso, so you can bend the torso this far down, which is pretty decent. This far up and slightly to the back, not too much to the back, but still pretty decent. And there is a ball socket joint at the waist below the belt, so you can move the torso around, rotate, and not too much because of the sculpting design of the torso, but if you force it, that'll pop the torso off of the waist, and you can see that there. You can see the ball socket joint there and the actual ball joint there. So, but that's easily popped into place, so it's not too bad. And there's additional up and down movement as well, so you get added range on that up and down movement of the torso, which is really nice. The legs are also on a ball socket joint, so you can move the leg this far forward and this far back before it pops out. So yeah, if you move it too extreme, it will pop out, but it's easily popped back in. It's not big a deal. So you can go slightly backwards that far back, and can go slightly outward before the sculpt over here gets into the belt. So not too much range on the side movement on there. Now the knees have what I'd like to say a triple jointed system. It's not really triple jointed, but it has basically 3 joints in the knee area. It has a hinge, a swivel, and a ball joint. So I think this is fairly common in the second generation, or at least the earlier second generation figures, in that you can bend the knee on a hinge right there, about that far back, and then with added movement of the ball joint, you can move it slightly further back on there. And there is a rotation here on a swivel. You can see how I move that inner joint on the back of the knee there, so you can move the entire lower leg around, but not too much before the kneecap gets in the way. And also with the ball socket joint on the lower leg, you can have additional swivel movement there of the lower leg, even side to side movement. So really decent range of movement of the leg. Now this particular knee, the left leg, is a little bit looser than compared to the right leg. You can see how it is easily moved there, which poses a bit of a problem in posing a little bit, but not too much due to the looseness on there. You just have to compensate when posing the figure with the looser knee here. Now the feet are on a ball socket joint as well, so you can get the foot about that far up, not too much, and that far downwards, as well as ankle pivots slightly side to side, and of course you can get it all the way around as well. So pretty decent articulation for a second generation S.I.C figure. I forgot to point out that the mufflers are on ball socket joints as well, and they can rotate, move forward and back a little bit as well. So you have added posability, especially if you want a windswept muffler there. You can pose it off to the side on that. So that's pretty decent there. So, but pretty decent articulation overall for this earlier second generation figure. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the items that are included with this Another Agito set. Some of them are, I guess, transformation pieces, especially the head area, and some of them are alternative pieces that were not shown on the show, that you can outfit Another Agito with to make it a little bit more stylized. Not really stylized, but just an alternative take on Another Agito. And let's go ahead and take a look at those. And what we have here are pieces to recreate the bared teeth transformation whenever Another Agito powers up. The face shield, or the mouth shield, slides upwards to reveal some bared teeth. And you can see here, this particular face here has the upper teeth, and this jaw has the lower teeth on there. And to exchange this with the head of Agito is actually pretty easy to do. And what you can do first is slide the top of the head off the post there, and that reveals the jaw, and that just is pegged in on either side, and you can just pry that off, and it's made of a softer plastic, so it's not too bad. And you can place the alternate jaw there on the peg holes on the side of the head portion there. Pretty cool. You can see the teeth there. And for the head, just go ahead show that there. The eyes and the antenna just slide off. There's 3 peg holes in the head there, and you got the 3 pegs on the back of the face there that you can just basically slide over into the holes. Let me see. We just put that in there, and they fit nicely and nice and snug, so they don't fall off. And then you basically just replace the head onto the post, and you could see a bared teeth version of Another Agito. The face shield slid up on there, and it shows a nice pair of bared teeth. It was just pretty cool. Now that's a little bit stylized compared to what's shown on the show, and you could see how you can open the jaw on this particular figure. Open and close, which was really never shown on the show, but that's actually kind of cool on there. Now there are a pair of alternative hands that are included. These are, I guess, sort of grasping hands. They're not truly grasping hands. I think these hands are sculpted to hold the handles of the motorcycle that Another Agito rides. And there is a separate set that you can configure a motorcycle either for Gills or for Another Agito, and I believe these hands are meant to hold the bike while driving it or riding it. So pretty cool. And these are basically ball joints that go into ball socket joints in the arms there. And then you have these 3 pieces here, which are an alternative, I guess, to the muffler. If you want a more stylized, not really stylized I should say, but an alternative take on Another Agito, instead of using the orange mufflers that come out from under the wings, you can actually have this more traditional muffler. This is the neck, the base of the neck. You can see how the double ball joints there that are you can replace on the figure. And then you have these 2 holes here where you can place the muffler into the flowing portion of the muffler. And just to do that, you can just pull the head off the joint, and you can see how this has got the base of the neck there is in brown, more of that organic feel onto it. And you can actually place the alternative neck with a muffler surrounded. Just peg that into there, and what you want to do is position the neck joint so that the peg holes line up to this notched area of the collar, so you can place the muffler extensions into there, and they just peg into those 2 holes onto there, and just slide that in, squeeze it in, and you have a pair of more traditional mufflers. And let me just go ahead and pull this off the joint. I'll do it off screen there, and put the jaw over the neck and the head over the jaw there. So you have Another Agito, which is a further nod to the Showa era riders, especially Rider 1 and Rider 2, where they had those mufflers. And you can see this is more a nod to that, a closer nod to the Showa era riders. And these mufflers here can rotate around that peg area, although I don't want to do it too much because I don't want to stress the peg. They're very tight fitting on there, and I don't want to break off the peg in that muffler area. But you can twist it or or actually rotate it before you actually peg it in, so you have different variations of the muffler there. Now, since he has this muffler here around his neck, you can do away with these mufflers, and just pull these off, and you can see their ball joints that go into the back of the figure there. And what you can replace them with are these. Now, these are alternative mini wings, more insect-like wings, that are made of translucent plastic with some look like a dyed orange on there, which is very cool. You can see the details on this. It's very, very nice on there, and it's got some sculpting detail on there, and you can see the ball joints there, and they plug in where the mufflers went into the back of the figure. Just plug them in like that, and get a good grasp on this, and plug it in there, and you have basically two sets of wings on either side. Now you have the sculpted part that's part of the figure there, and then you have the translucent wings here that actually do rotate and slightly move up and down, but not too much. So you can articulate and pose this however you see fit on there. So this, I guess, would be a more stylized, if you can call it stylized, but I say a more alternative take to Another Agito with very Showa-like design, especially with the muffler on there and the wings that are sculpted into the suits of Rider 1 and Rider 2. But very, very cool figure. A lot better than I had originally thought or anticipated from what I read. I think it's actually a pretty decent figure with decent articulation and just a little bit of loose joints like here on the knee, and slight looseness at the elbow here. But overall, I think it's a pretty decent figure for a second generation S.I.C. figure, and one that I slightly prefer over the newer version of Another Agito. So it's mainly due to this right here. I really like the nod to the character on the show, which is very, very cool. This is my casual peek into the S.I.C. Volume 20 of Another Agito. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.